beginning part
Okay,
two.
good.
Hey, my name's Tony Jones.
And this is the Reverend Russell and his Hardest Question video blog, and we are at Ordinary 32.
32, yeah, year B. And so, two paragraphs.
Right.
Well, let's talk about them both. The first paragraph, what's interesting as I hear it and as I hear you read it, it reminds me of how I grew up. Like, it's funny that Jesus is talking about the scribes with their long robes. And when I grew up, the ministers in my church and all the kind of similar churches, they all wore long robes.
Right, yeah.
They all wanted to be addressed with honorifics.
Right, yeah.
They got, in the town I grew up in, they received complimentary memberships at both the country clubs in town.
Really?
Yeah. They got cars. They got like great deals on cars because the car dealers went to these big.
And I remember discounts at the dry cleaning discounts.
Discounts at the health club. Right. They would give the opening prayer at the Rotary meeting, the city. They received all sorts of honor and the very things that in the marketplace, in the government centers, that Jesus condemns about this first century scribes. Right. I mean, to hear that now, like they literally wore long robes. I mean, not as they walked around town, but on Sunday.
And they like to do long prayers at the beginning of the, So what you're saying then is that the world is being transformed by Jesus Christ, because we ain't getting no discounts on our dry cleaning.
Not anymore.
No, we're at a country club.
We must be in the end of days.
We must be, or I think maybe we're in the millennium is coming, where Christ reigns.
That could be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's an interesting take on the first. I mean, it just shocks me, and I wonder how many pastors will preach this text wearing a long robe after giving a long, flowery pastoral prayer, and knowing that evening he's got to go to the Cub Scout blue and gold banquet to give the invocation and have everyone address him as reverend or pastor.
But does that even happen anymore? I mean, maybe it does in different communities.
I think it does. But not in other places.
How do I give me one of those gigs?
Well, dude, you preach at bars. So
It's
a different deal, right?
Right. I do get drink tickets, so maybe it's the same thing.
It might be.
Yeah.
Well, and then we've got another paragraph that he goes from that into the widows, and I think you've got an interesting take on that.
He makes this transitional phase too, because he says that they devour widows, right? And then he goes on.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they devour widows and take their homes or whatever. And then he goes on, and he gives an example. He sees this widow and says, look, she is giving everything that she has, even though it's just only worth like a penny.
Yeah.
And these other people, they give a lot, but it's out of their abundance. So percentage-wise, they're not giving as much. The widow is giving far more. Which, I mean, he totally spiritualizes this act of giving, which I don't know if that's appropriate. In some ways, it seems to me like it doesn't make sense of how our reality works. We actually really do use money a lot. We need money.
Yeah.
And Debbie had this great thing in her sermon, Reverend Debbie Blue. She was talking about how, let's be honest, we can all live without God, but we can't live without money.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, it's just like, And so this, to me, it's like, the widow, she gives, I mean, maybe good for her. I don't know, good for her. She has no place to live anymore. And
she gave her last penny.
Right. And still, you can have all the widows in the world giving their little pennies. It's not enough money. You'd rather have some people giving out of their abundance.
Wealthy benefactors.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an interesting thing where you might read this and think to yourself, well, look, Jesus had the freedom to say this because he never had to pastor a church.
Right, yeah.
He didn't have to wear the robes. He didn't have to say the long prayers. And he didn't have to raise money to keep a parish running.
This is really interesting. So he's outside of this religious system. So he doesn't need the same kinds of thing to keep the religious system going.
Yeah.
So we're going to proclaim this, where you all are going to proclaim this from inside the system, a system that needs money to continue going. I think you take off that robe and walk out.
Or preach the Old Testament lesson.
Yeah, you could do that.
Preach the epistle. Good luck.
Yep.